Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayasha Bandreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 8th day of January 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 7, Chapter 5, Prahlāda Mahārāja, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Text number 5. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Asudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Asadgrahat Hitvatma Patam Griham Andhakupam Vanam Gato Yad Dharim Ashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Sudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Sadgrahat Hitvatma Patang Griham Andhakupam Vanangato Yad Hadimashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Sudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Sadgrahat Hitvatma Patang Griham Andhakupam Vanangato Yad Hadimashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Sudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Sadgrahat Hitvatma Patang Griham Andhakupam Vanangato Yad Hadamashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Sudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Sadgrahat Hitvatma Patang Griham Andhakupam Parangato Yad Hadamashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Sudavarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhyam Sadgrahat Hitvatma Patam Griham Andhakupam Panam Kato Yad Hadimashrayeta. Shri Prahlāda Vacha Tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyama sadgvahat hitvatmapatam griyamanda kupam vanam gato yadhadamashayeta. Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyama sadgvahat hitvatmapatam griyamanda kupam vanangato yadhadamashayeta. Virchanda, you want to try it? Okay. Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyama sadgvahat hitvatmapatam griyamanda kupam vanangato yadhadamashayeta. Anyone online? Chad, you there?
Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja
Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja
tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam
tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam
sada samudvigna dhyam asagrahat
sada samudvigna dhyama sadgvahat
hitvatmapatam graham andakupam
hitvatmapatam griyamanda kupam
vanam gato yadarim ashrita.
vanam gato yadhadamashayeta. Thank you. Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja. Prahlāda Mahārāja replied, Tat, that, sadhu, very good, or the best part of life. Manye, I think, Asudavarya, O king of the Asuras. Sorry, it's not Asuras, it's Asuras. Dehinam, of persons who have accepted the material body. Sada, always. Samudvigna, full of anxieties. Dhyam, whose intelligence. Asatgrahat, because of accepting the temporary body or bodily relations as real, thinking, I am this body, and everything belonging to this body is mine. Hitva, giving up. Atmapatam, the place where spiritual culture or self-realization is stopped. Griham, the bodily concept of life, or household life. Andhakupam, which is nothing but a blind well, where there is no water, but one nonetheless searches for water. Vanam, to the forest. Gataha, going. Yat, which. Hadim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ashrayeta, may take shelter of. Translation. Prahlāda Mahārāja replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen into a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest, Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you think Hiranyakashipu was happy to hear this? No. Purport. Hiranyakashipu thought that Prahlāda, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something, might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlāda Mahārāja, however, being an exalted devotee, had acquired all the qualities of education. And Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarva gunais tattva samasate sura. Hadava bhaktasya kato mahanguna manodate nasati dhavato bahihi. One who has, quote, one who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the eternal feature, external feature of Lord. Excuse me. Okay. Time out. Okay, that should help. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12, and I believe it's spoken by Prahlāda Mahārāja himself. So-called educated philosophers and scientists who are simply on the mental platform cannot distinguish between what is actually sat, eternal, and what is asat, temporary. The Vedic injunction is asato ma sadgamaya. Everyone should give up the platform of temporary existence and approach the eternal platform. The soul is eternal, and topics concerning the eternal soul are actually knowledge. Elsewhere it is said, apashyatam atma tattvam griheshu grihamedinam. Those who are attached to the bodily conception of life and who thus stick to life as a grihasta or householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. Prahlāda Mahārāja confirmed this by saying that if one wants success in life, he should immediately understand from the right sources what his self-interest is and how he should mold his life in spiritual consciousness. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in the material world is in the bodily conception, struggling hard for existence, life after life. Prahlāda Mahārāja therefore recommended that to stop this material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest, vana. In the varnashram system, one first becomes a brahmachari, then a grihasta, a vanaprastha, and finally a sannyasi. Going to the forest means accepting vanaprastha life, which is between grihasta life and sannyas. As confirmed in the Vishnu Purana 389, Varnashramacharabhata Purushena Parakpaman Vishnu Aradyate. By accepting the institution of Varna and Ashram, one can very easily elevate himself to the platform of worshipping Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, if one remains in the bodily conception, one must rot within this material world, and his life will be a failure. Society must have divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and for spiritual advancement one must gradually develop as a brahmachari, grihasta, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. Prahlāda Mahārāja recommended that his father accept vanaprastha life because as a grihasta he was becoming increasingly demoniac due to bodily attachment. Prahlāda recommended to his father that accepting vanaprastha life would be better than going deeper and deeper into griham andakupam, the blind well of life as a grihasta. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore invite all the elderly persons of the world to come to Vrindavan and stay there in retired life, making advancement in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So before we begin exploring the deep meaning of this verse and purport, let's just think about the situation here, what we're reading about. Here is this little child, 5 years old or so, maybe 5.5 by now, but still very, very delicate and dependent. And here's this enormous demon who wasn't satisfied with being as powerful as he was, and so he performed these extraordinary austerities to become the ruler of the universe. Everyone but Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva were bowing down to him. All the demigods had to recognize his supremacy and authority. If he raised his eyebrow, they would be afraid that he was going to chastise them or annihilate them. So he's enormously powerful. He's not, and even if he wasn't, even if he was just his own father, you know, and the big father and the little boy. Still, the child is always in fear of the father if he's a very stern father, you know. But he's completely fearless. He's, because he is constantly meditating on Krishna, he is the emblem, or the acharya, if you will, for remembrance of the Lord. Each of the 9 processes has a exemplar. And for, let's see if we can get them all. No, I may need your help a little bit. For hearing, who do you think? Who? Hearing. Pariksit. He heard it, he did nothing but hear the Bhagavatam for 7 days straight. No sleeping, no eating, no drinking, no nothing. Just hearing. And that was his pure sadhana, and he achieved perfection. And chanting on the other side, Shukadeva.
Shukadeva Goswami.
Thank you. Vijay Krishna.
And Prahlāda Mahārāja attained perfection by remembering.
All right. Let me go through. Don't jump the gun. Wait your turn. So we have Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. And who's Smaranam? Prahlāda. Prahlāda is the emblem of Smaranam. So you can imagine just how exalted his remembrance was. Constantly, 24 hours a day, he's remembering Vishnu in his heart, Krishna in his heart, and he feels completely safe and protected. This is the result. Even though he's such a delicate little boy, he's not afraid. He's not afraid. And we'll see in a few verses how he was protected when his father, you know, finally loses it and tries to execute him. So that's remember. Shravanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam. Lakshmi, right? Lakshmi. She's known for always serving, massaging the lotus feet of the Lord, serving. Archanam. This is a tough one. Prito. I was once asked by Lokanath Swami, he was going to give class. I was in Mayapur. I think it was either there in Vrindavan. And he says, what is the example? Because he knew that Prita was the acharya, but he didn't see any examples in the, you don't find him, you know, doing a lot of deity worship or any deity worship. So I did some research. I couldn't answer his question, but later on I did some research. And all of the sacrifices and everything he did to get the earth going again, and I don't know if you know the story, but his father, Vena, was a demon. And gradually, the earth, because the demons were in charge, she withheld her largesse. That's going to happen now too. That's happening now, by way of droughts and floods and all of these things, and killing off all the insects. You may not know it, but we need the insects. They help out with keeping the earth going. And everything. Anyway, so that counted as archana. And all of those sacrifices that he did. And so he was the acharya for that. Okay, archanam, now vandanam, prayers.
Akrura.
Thank you. Archanam, vandanam, dasyam. Don't call it out unless you, okay, anyone knows the answer? Hanuman. Yes, he was the emblem of service for Ram, you know, obviously. Very, very determined in many different circumstances. Sakyam.
Arjun.
Okay, thanks, Vijay. And Atmanivedanam.
Bali Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, so now let's get into this verse. Now, so the idea is that he's completely fearless because he feels completely protected, not a smidgen of fear, in spite of the so-called fearful situation he's in. And so he's the other emblem of preaching. Speaking truth to power, you know, this is a phrase, because if you don't, then demonic power wins. There has to be a challenge. So he speaks the truth to power. So what does he say here? You know, the question is, what's the best thing you learned today? So he didn't learn this today. He didn't learn it from the school. You know, he learned this from Narada Muni. And so what is he saying here? This is Prabhupada would love to quote this verse. Tat sadhu manye. So we have the sadhu. Of course, it doesn't mean a person sadhu. It means the best. Just like I like to point out, you'll find in the Bhagavatam, you'll find also I think in the 10th canto when Krishna's playing with his boys, Krishna does some wonderful thing and they say sadhu sadhu. And it means bravo. What do you say? Bravo. Very good, very nice, very good. So the best thing, in my opinion, he says, oh, best of the demons. Prabhupada points out in the lecture on this verse that he doesn't call him father, but he calls him the best of the demons, Asodabharya. Best for whom? Prabhupada says, Dehinam. Who are the Dehinams? We should know that word. Dehinos minyatad. Anyone know? What does Dehinam mean? The embodied soul. You can remember it's a little, Dehinam. The I-N means in the body. Dehinam. Best for the embodied conditioned soul. Conditioned souls in the body. Who are always disturbed in mind. This word samudvigna diyam. Samudvigna, it comes up again. It says naivodvijay, that same word, udvijay. I am not disturbed. In the wonderful prayers near the end there, this very famous verse. I'm not at all disturbed. Naivodvijay padadodatya vaitaranyas. Because I'm with you, and you're across the river in Vaitarani. You're beyond any hint of Maya. So I'm completely happy, and any time I want, I can chant your glories and dive into an ocean of nectar. Sada samudvigna diyama sadguhat. No, that's this one. Naivodvide puradatta vaitaranyas twadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta. This is a lesson for us also. Virya gayana, your powerful, wonderful activities. I can sing about them. We have ample lyrics here in the Bhagavatam and everywhere. Gayana mahamrita. Who can analyze that word? Not you. I'm going to take Bhadrinath. No, not you, Ramapati. You know Sanskrit. Maha Amrita. Yeah, great nectar. An ocean full of nectar. We can dive in by singing Krishna's glories. That's what the Hare Krishna mantra is all about. By chanting and hearing and entering, we're diving into that nectar. We're still conditioned so we don't experience all the ecstatic symptoms at once, but that's why we're here. So so the same word. I don't have a hint of disturbance. This is the samugna, means totally disturbed in mind. Why? And this is such a key word. Asad grahat, grabbing onto, holding onto for dear life that which is impermanent. You can see that this is what material life is all about. You take shelter of the body, you take shelter of the family, you take shelter of the money, of the insurance policy, of the defense department, but they're all fallible. They're all asat. Certainly your body is asat, right? So therefore you're always disturbed because deep down inside you know you're not really safe. That there's danger everywhere and eventually you're going to die. You're going to dwindle and die. So it's a very disturbing situation for the eternal conditioned soul to be in this asat, temporary condition, danger. So now, but he doesn't leave us hanging. He says, here's how you can solve the problem, oh Father. Hit vatmapatam, give it up. The atmapatam, you remember from the word by words, it means that which impedes your spiritual progress. This is what Prabhupada did when he came. By giving people an experience through the chanting and the hearing and the prasadam and his own personality, some few great, fortunate souls. This is Krishna's, plan. You can see him working in the background. Sometimes things happen in Krishna consciousness that increase your faith because it's obviously a miracle, because it's obviously Krishna's intervention. So just think of this. First of all, the fact that Prabhupada could come to America and get a visa and stay for some months, you see, had just changed. They made it easier to emigrate, to get that kind of a visa in the early 60s, maybe 1 or 2 years, or maybe 1 year before Prabhupada came. Brahmananda pointed that out. So Prabhupada was able to stay long enough to go through the whole thing where he really wasn't making any progress and then come down town and to Lower East Side. And he had that wonderful facility on the Bowery, where he had a place where he could chant because it was big. If he's in a little room, which he had uptown, it wouldn't work. But these are called artist lofts or something. There's no walls. It's like it can be as big as this temple, and you pay $100 a month or less. So he had that facility, even though he had to share it with a guy who later went crazy, if you read the Leelamrita, but for a while everything was. And he was able to gather people to chant. Who came? Mukunda Maharaj, Michael Grant, who was a professional musician, who was attracted, by the music and by the chanting and everything, and he was able to do so much. The affinity he was able to develop with George Harrison, because they were both, professional musicians. All of these things helped the movement, to grow. So anyway, the Hitvatmapatam, the materialistic household life is compared here to a blind well. Now, of course, we don't have these, wells everywhere. You can go to a field, you're not going to find wells. But in a place like India, this is how they get water. They don't have a big, water transporting system like we take for granted here. So there's wells everywhere, especially in the fields, And after a while, they go dry and they grow over with grass. You imagine how dangerous that is. Animals fall in, they die. And if a human being falls in and there's no one around, you can scream and yell and pray and everything, and you're finished. So it's very dangerous. It's a trap. It's stuck. And materialistic household life is compared to that all the time. Griyam anda kupam. That you're stuck. Why? Because it's just a ever-increasing web of attachments that you develop. Attachments and anxieties, there's so what you have to work in order to sustain it. That's an anxiety. The relationships can go south. The wife can get a lover, or the man can get a lover, or whatever. You have these fragile little children that need care all the time. But Raymond told me, Purushottam and Priya, the couple who was here. So they had that wonderful kid, Gaurangi, everyone loves her. So they didn't know, really, apparently, they weren't trained by their parents, how to take care of kids. So they were thinking, the kid is sleeping nicely, we'll go to the temple and leave the kid, like a 3-month-old kid. Luckily, they told Badrinath, said, no, you have to always be with the child. Someone has to always be with the child at that age. Until they're 6 years old, you have to be conscious of that. So that's an anxiety. It's just, so it's one thing after another, and if you just stay in it without the progression, that's why Prabhupada brings up the Varnashram. It's not that obviously there has to be a facility for household life, but it's part of the plan of Krishna. He created Varnashram, right? For progressive detachment and ultimate trying to go back home, back to Godhead. At least making progress in that direction, and then next life you continue. So that involves giving up this Griya and the Kupam. Now, the Vanaprastha system is like in between, as Prabhupada points out, Grahastha and Sannyasi. And that means that, okay, at a certain point, here's the way it's supposed to work. You have children, and when you're really young, 20 years old, 22 years old, 25 years old. And then when you're 50, your eldest son, you got to have a son, is 25 years old, and he can take care of the mother, who's maybe in her early 50s by then, you see? So they start out, Vanaprastha, they're visiting, the man and wife are visiting holy places. They're not, no physical contact. They're getting, they're cultivating spiritual life. And then at a certain point, the wife goes home to be cared for by the elder son or sons. So she's not abandoned. And the man takes sannyas and he becomes more and more attached. The whole point is to gradually, sometimes it happens suddenly, but this is the way it's designed to happen, to become more and more detached from material things and more attached to Krishna. You go to all these beautiful temples, you see the deities, you're chanting, and you're hearing and meeting, and you're developing your spiritual life. That's the way it's supposed to work. So now Hiranyakashipu is obviously not going to do that, but Prahlāda is giving the eternal instruction for human beings. He's giving the advice that should be given. And then the clincher, which is the last thing in the world Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear, and take shelter of Hari. Hari is his archenemy. He killed his brother, right? He's hoping to get so powerful that he can kill Hari. He'll get schooled about that. So then Vanam, the commentators all say this means Vrindavan, and take shelter of Hari, and which is what Prahlāda did from within the womb, and he's completely protected. So it's classic. And what Hiranyakashipu will do is that at first he doesn't freak out. He said, just see how the enemy has come in and somehow polluted my child, And Sandanamarka, this no, we'll reform him. He's just a little child. We'll get him, free from this misconception. Little did they know, There's no reforming Prahlāda. Prahlāda is fixed, completely fixed. So as Prabhupada says, he thought he's nothing but a small boy, no actual experience. He might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Wasn't so pleasing. Now it's interesting that the Prabhupada quotes this verse describing how Prahlāda got all of these wonderful qualities. And what's so great about these chapters, because this is a big hunk of the 7th canto, is that we're going to hear Prahlāda's teachings to his friends. I always remember, I don't remember any Sanskrit for this, I should really look at it. But I remember when I first read it, it was so cogent. How materialistic household life, again he's talking about that, it's just like a silkworm who weaves his own, cocoon, right? And he feels he's safe in there, But those who are making silk, they have a bunch of silkworms that cocoon. And then at a certain point, the hot water, right? And they're dead. So that's what it is. It's doom. You're thinking you're safe. This is the whole illusion. If you're successful, you have your job, you have some savings, you have some insurance, you have a house. Okay, there's my wife and kids. Everything's going off all right. We got the health insurance, So that's. But it's just like a cocoon. You're weaving all of these attachments. You're relying on these things which are fallible. The fallible body is, of course, the first thing. And then eventually it all comes crashing down, especially in today's age, The technology is a tremendous force for evil in most cases. I'll tell this story. I'm not going to name any names because I don't like to do that. But in Alachua, there was a nice Google for many years for girls as well as for boys. And it was going on, and then one year they closed it up. And so after a few years later, I asked the lady who was running it, what happened? Cell phones. All the young girls, raising the girls at 10, 11, 12, 13, they all had to have cell phones. If one of them gets a cell phone, they all have to have cell phones. So they all have cell phones. Great. So they have their private little thing. So they ended up texting the guys in the boys' ashram because they all had cell phones. That doesn't work. That does not work. And they couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't possible, so they closed it up. So just think what these cell phones mean. It means everybody has access, who knows how to work it, to the whole world of information. And there's so many people out there who want to try to convince you of something specific so that they can exploit you. I hate to even mention it, but pornography available on your cell phone, and 13, 14-year-old boys, learning that. It's disastrous. It's disastrous for the society. And then what you have now, is that everybody has their little conspiracy theory and their little thing what they believe, and it may be crazy. It's Maya and exponential. And so they'll find other people who have the same idea, and before you know it, that's what they don't want to hear anything else. And so they become convinced of something that's completely not true. Completely not true. They're already convinced. Maya's already got them bamboozled, thinking they can be happy and successful in this material world. So it's very dangerous. So that's the world we live in, and the only counter force that has any meaning is this movement and this knowledge. And so we have a responsibility to realize the knowledge as much as possible, so that we can be convincing when we try to preach it. So we become good examples of the philosophy. You see the importance. Every book distributor will tell you, the thing that enables you to distribute books is strong sadhana. If you don't have strong sadhana and reading and becoming enlivened by the books, how can you convince others to take it? But if you are, and you're really personifying to a degree, you know, the wonderful things about Krishna consciousness that it can do for you, then you can affect people at the heart. You know, the super soul is there. And people will be curious and they'll be interested in what you have to say because of the person who's behind it, because it's the person who's giving it to them. So our sadhana is not only for our own benefit, but also for enabling us to become agents of Krishna and able to save others. The only hope in this world is Krishna consciousness, really. The only hope is the spread of the holy name and the Krishna consciousness as it is, and it's our responsibility to cultivate it in ourselves, help our God brothers and others, you know, to become advanced, and to then use that advancement, whatever it may be, into introducing it into people who don't yet have it. This is how we became devotees. Every one of us has some kind of contact. Of course, the books are involved, but there's also persons involved who convinced us to take a second look, to investigate. That's the whole thing. And that's the Shraddha, in the Adau Shraddha. It's wonderful to learn, you know, this is one of the most important things to learn, this step-by-step ladder from Shraddha, faith, to Prema, love. Because all of us can relate to that, where we are on that ladder. So it first begins with a little faith. And that faith is not the pure faith that comes with Nishtha. Nishtha is what Lord Chaitanya described as pure faith. But this faith is essential. And what is it Prabhupada said? A little respect, a little interest, curiosity. Enough to bring you into sadhu sangha. That's the next step, right? Adharshadata, sadhu sangha. Now we know that this is sadhu sangha, and that's what these temples are for, and it's very important. But in this age, this is the other side of the electronics, is that the internet can also be a great force for good. We all went through that pandemic. Can you imagine that if we had no Zoom calls, no way of contacting, it was mentioned, the dandabats.com, I think Maharaj mentioned it yesterday, and this ISKCON desire tree. You can get on there and listen to lectures of Prabhupada and so many great souls who, wonderful. So this is what Rupa Goswami meant by actual yukta vairagya. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham apayunjita. So that line alone is revolutionary. Anasaktasya means without detachment to the vishayas, the objects of the senses, but using them where appropriate and how appropriate in the service of the Lord. You see? Just like Prabhupada said, yeah, I'm going to ride on people wonder, how are you coming in this big car? You're supposed to be a yogi and renounce this. Yes, because I'm a representative of the Lord. So this is the best use of the car. And the airplanes, Prabhupada says in one purport, even missiles can be used. I don't know how, but he said it. So the point is that the same Vishayas, objects of the senses that you can enjoy, they can be used in the service to Krishna. And Prabhupada's genius in the love feast. This was suggested to him, in the beginning. He was there on 26th Avenue, and the devotees were tasting prasada, mostly a lot of it cooked by Prabhupada, and it was so attractive, Lunch, everyone would, they had people who just arrived for lunch, but that's okay. They're getting prasad, getting association. They can also become attracted. So the idea that in America at that time, a lot of families would gather on Sunday afternoon for lunch, for a dinner, a special dinner. Says, okay, so we'll have a love feast. Prabhupada gave that name. We'll have a love feast on Sunday and invite everybody to come and eat for free. Well, naturally, a lot of people got coming, hippies who are just the right persons. So that's the ideal yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya means vairagya that links you to Krishna. And so nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. So by using the objects of the senses in the service to Krishna, you don't become attached to the objects of the senses, you become attached to Krishna. Bound up. Now, you're not bound up, you're serving out the prasadam. I like to serve out the prasadam. Maharaj, I remember when he was a little more mobile, he would love to serve out prasadam. And so you're not serving out the prasadam because you just, you love to eat the halva, but because you're able to relish everybody's feast. The fact that you're giving out to people who like to, So that's yukta vairagya. Very important principle in devotional service. On the other side, you have palgu vairagya. Now, palgu means weak. It's not really strong vairagya because it's not backed up with attachment to Krishna. So how does that one know? Vijay, you know this one. Oh, you know the verse describing? Falgu. Yeah. Prapanchikadya. Prapanchikadya buddhya hadisambandhi vastunak. Prapanchikadya means seeing as material. Having a mentality that things that are related directly to Krishna are also material. Oh, you're worshipping some statue. This is hellish mentality. There's a verse like that. Arche Vishnu Shiladir. To see it. By the way, one little pronunciation thing that I'll say this again. I think you may have heard it, some of you. The difference between Shila and Shila. A Shila is a stone. Shila is behavior. I'm sorry, it's the opposite. Shila is the stone. So it's a shalagram shila. Just like we say, what is it, that last line in the prayer to the Sringadev? Shila tanka nakalaye. Shila tanka means he has a stone-like chest, but the Sringadev's nails were like a chisel to break open that chest. Anyway, that's just a pronunciation thing. So the objects of the senses are always dragging our mind, and if we don't have a means of defending ourselves, then we're going to be swept away. So the means of defense is your attachment to Krishna, your prayer. It's like, you remember Prahlāda Mahārāja after the death of Hiranyakashipu, and the Sringadeva is there, and he's offering all these prayers. He offers the prayers, and then the Sringadeva says, "Oh, my dear Prahlāda, you can have anything you want. I'll give you whatever you want." And Prahlāda protests. He says, "I'm not a vanik. I'm not doing business with you. I don't want anything." So then he saw that it would be pleasing to the Sringadeva to get something from him. That was a kind of a service. You see, he says, "Okay, oh, best of the givers of benediction. If you like, I could try to dredge up the Sanskrit, but it's not necessary. This is what I desire." He has two prayers. The most famous is he prayed for the deliverance of his father. But I think this became first. Please let material desires never take root in my heart. May I never have any material desires. And for those who know that famous prayer in the fifth chapter, fifth canto, that's his prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Jastejase Abhadavi Bhavavadranaka Vadradangshta Karma Shayan Randaya Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Svaha Abhiyam Atmani Bhuyishta Om Shraum. This is the syllable. Isn't it? It's a sound effect of ripping apart. Shraum. It's not like Kleem. Kleem is a Radharani. Anyway, so... So there he's teaching us how to pray. He's praying. So he's praying that may material desires never enter my heart. This is a prayer that we can pray like that. Perfect prayer. So Prahlāda is ideal, and he's completely unafraid of his father. And this is the first instruction. He's also going to meet him again. Okay, tell me what the best thing you learned. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. He gives him the 9 process of devotional service. Didn't want to hear that one. I think that's the one that finally said, okay, I'm going to kill him. He decided, okay, execute him. And then they couldn't execute him. They couldn't even scare him, which is very frightening for the demons. So anyway, this is a wonderful verse. You should contemplate it. And Prabhupada has such a nice purport here. And the basic idea is that this is also for us. We are, any disturbance we have in our lives is because of the material body. Because of the material body. We are spirit souls. We're meant to be Satchit Ananda, always enjoying the relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. But we left that foolishly, thinking we could enjoy in this world, and we've been here ever since, going through different bodies up and down, and a lot of suffering. And the only reason we can exist now is because Krishna lets us forget it. Right? He said, Matta smriti jnanam, I'm the super soul, and for me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And that forgetfulness is why we're able to. But there's a passage, where is this? It's in the, I think it's in the 4th canto, in Narada's instructions to the Prachetas, Narada's instruction to King Prachanabarishat. And this whole idea of remembering, how we can't remember. And in one of the purports, Prabhupada said, when you get completely realized, you can remember all your past lives. You remember that? You can remember all those things, because you can deal with them. Now, it would completely overwhelm us. Imagine, how you died as a dog, how you died, someone ripped your heart out. Pretty traumatic. We'd all have PTSD in spades. So here we are, thinking we were born so many years ago and we'll die and that'll be the end. But no, the first lesson is, no, you will not die. Everybody dies, nobody dies. I'm not going to chant, this story. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body or pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the summary of the Hare Krishna movement. But that lesson is hard to learn, because we easily slip back into the bodily concept of life. So that's where the strong sadhana and the good association and the study and the prayer comes in. To pray, let me advance, let me become more detached from Maya and more attached to you. And we have so many facilities for that. The kirtan, the devotees, the wonderful deities, the books, Sankirtan, preaching, all of that helps us, because Krishna shows us mercy. He gives us the detachment from Maya, and He gives us attachment to Him. That's what we're looking for. Sorry, I went a little over time. Any questions or comments? Local first.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
just a very small question. In the ashrams, we see that the first brahmachari, then grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. And in this age, we see that brahmachari can cross over grihastha and vanaprastha and become a sannyasi. But what about the times of Prahlāda Mahārāja? Maybe that was also prominent, and if it was, then maybe you can think of an example.
Prahlāda himself, he didn't go through
that's what I was thinking.
Well, actually, he did afterward. He became grihastha. Yeah, he did. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. It's pretty. Today's age is, Kali is just a confusing age. There's all kinds of mix-ups and things like that. So the essence of it, Prabhupada, this famous phrase, you don't hear it so much, a lot of it, do the needful. Prabhupada needed sannyasis, some of them were brahmacharis, There were some householders. There were some pretty short household lives in those days. 1 or 2 years, and then they took sannyas. So to follow this formula today, is very rare, 25 and then take 50, 50. Jayavada Swami is writing a whole book on Vanaprastha, isn't he? Yeah, because it's rare, and I'm not going to get into the reason why or speculate or anything, but it would increase, I think, the outreach, the exposure of Krishna consciousness if more and more households would take it upon themselves to do that traveling. I think part of it is financial. To get on a plane today, 2 people get on a plane just to go to another country is like thousands of dollars, isn't it? And what to speak of having children? They estimate it's like, what, $300,000 to raise a kid in America? Any takers? Hare Krishna. Haribol.
In the beginning.
So yeah, so so Prabhupada made sannyasis, a lot of sannyasis from brahmachari, and that's the way it is right now.
In the beginning days when the Krishna consciousness entered Russia, I remember hearing that they were a bit fanatic and they wouldn't wear white. Everyone would wear saffron, and people would show up at the program with their children wearing saffron.
Well, there was a time when, when they first started wearing saris and dhotis, I think that they would all dye them together, There would be saffron saris and things going on, There was a lot of, because of Prabhupada's presence and a lot of chanting, a lot of Harinam, everything was made okay, But these are scientific ways in which a society could be organized, both for prosperity as well as spiritual advancement. Because don't forget, second chapter, first canto. Atak pumbir dvida shrestha varnashrama vibhagasa svanusita siddharmasa sangsiddhiya ditoshanam. That you may execute all everything very nicely in our varnashram, but the test is whether it's successful, whether Hari is satisfied. And he's satisfied when everyone is making advancement, toward devotional service. Mukunda, you had something?
Related to Dvijamani Prabhu's question, I was also curious about that, how we have brahmacharis who then go from the brahmacharya ashram, then they have a sannyas ceremony, they take sannyas from the brahmacharya ashram. And even though there are these 4 stages, but then I couldn't think of myself, I also can't think of someone like Narada Muni he was a brahmachari, but he never made sannyas vows. You could say he basically, it's hard to, what is he a brahmachari, is he a sannyasi? It seems like those who didn't enter the grihastha ashram, there was no need to undergo, or at least, that's a speculation though, but doesn't seem like there's any record in Shastra that I can think of, an example, at least in Bhagavatam, where a brahmachari takes sannyas. It seems like they might act like a sannyasi, but like the distinction by a ceremony isn't there. Yeah. Can you think of anyone who did?
No, Prahlāda himself, of course, he did, after all of this, he entered the grihastha ashram. But usually what you see in the Bhagavatam is that oftentimes they're leaving home, they're these kings. There doesn't seem to be a period there where they're traveling with their queen anywhere. They're just leaving. Like what did Bharat do? He did it when he was a youth. He certainly didn't go through. He was in a household, and then he gave it all up as like refuse, or worse than refuse, and did what he did. Of course, he didn't quite complete the course right away, but eventually. So you get a lot of that the renunciation comes suddenly, and like with who is it, Anga, father of Vena, just out of disgust, he couldn't. He had the ideal, what is it, incorrigible son. He could not be corrected. He would kill his playmates and everything. So one day he said he just couldn't take it anymore and just left home. So there's all kinds of things. It's not really so many ideal varnashram examples you find in Bhagavatam historically. But that's the way it's supposed to go in the modern age, if possible. And I think you have kind of a lot of older householders, and they're still living together because it's hard. They may have a little money saved up, but it's not going to work to split it up. And anyway, it's difficult. I remember, I think it was Keshava Bharati. No, it was Kadamba Maharaj, because he was a householder in Vrindavan, I think, when he was running the temple. And then there was this whole, he got shot and everything. And so he once said, I never had to think about, he was a householder living there, and he was the temple president, so he was taking care of it, his wife. I don't know if he had kids or not. But then he said, I never had to think about business as much as when I was contemplating taking sannyas, because I couldn't just leave my wife with no means of support, so you had to set up a whole business, so you don't find that in the Bhagavatam, do the needful. All right. Vijay?
Just to show, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many examples of devotees taking sannyas right from brahmachari. So not in the I can't think of anything in the Bhagavatam, but in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many examples.
Yeah. So he would have a sannyas ceremony as a brahmachari?
I don't know exactly, but Lord Chaitanya would tell devotees, don't get married, just take sannyas. Just.
Yeah. Felt like they would accept sannyas danda and so on from the brahmachari ashram, or would they just continue as a brahmachari and preach? Or would they accept a danda and a noon day sannyasa. I'm just not familiar with that really good. CC, I can't think.
Well, that was where, you know, even, I mean, Lord Chaitanya had to go to Mayavadi in order to get that official thing, you know. So in the Vaishnavas, mostly the Babaji, they take the Babaji, like the 6 Goswamis, you know. All right, it's getting late. Vijay Krishna, you're on.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, very quickly. In the translation to the text you chose for today, I see that Prahlāda Mahārāja is declaring to his father that the ones who accept temporary household life certainly become embarrassed by anxiety. So based on this, my question is there any difference between becoming anxious because of temporary household life and becoming anxious because of pleasing Krishna?
Well, if you're anxious because you're leaving Krishna, I mean, you're thinking of Krishna. The point is that in material family life, the anxiety.
Sorry, anxious for pleasing Krishna.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said leaving Krishna.
No, pleasing.
Okay. That's a wholesome anxiety. That's the kind of anxiety you want to have, because it leads to ecstasy and bliss, to be real anxiety. Prabhupada, you know, was always in anxiety for the movement, for the health of the movement, and so many things. So just like lust can also be engaged, you know, in having Krishna conscious children, and anger. Arjuna had to be angry to fight, right? But those lust, anger, you know, greed, we should be greedy for Krishna. There's a prayer to become a miser. Did you know that? Vichayani, vichayani, vichinyani, punak punah, kripanasya dhanani, bhatvannamani, bhavantunahak. Joseph knows this verse. He's nodding. So what it means is, compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So it's how you use it, just like Yukta Vairagya. You can use greed, you can use lust, you can use anger, but it has to be carefully under the instruction of a realized soul, spiritual master. So, yeah, I thought you were going to talk about embarrassed, because embarrassed usually means, well, how does embarrassed work? Embarrassed has another meaning. It doesn't just mean that you, oh my God, what have I done, you know? No, it means that you're restricted, you're put into anxiety by something. That's another meaning of embarrassed. But the anxiety, this is material anxiety, fallen into the dark well because you're in an unnatural position, and how to sustain it, how to, you know, to pay for this, what's happening to my kids, what's happening to my body, with my health insurance. It's impossible. You can't be happy, and it ultimately ends in death, and you go get another body. And in this age, unless you have some connection with Krishna consciousness, you're going down. There's just too much craziness going on right now. So that's the best I can do, Prabhu. Anxiety can also be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Yes. If it's anxiety to please Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare
Sure.
Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.